And it's the 64th week of Russia's war in Ukraine, and Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, has been attacked from the air by Russia for the 9th time this month. Explosions were heard in Kyiv and other Ukrainian regions in the early hours of today, as authorities reported a nationwide air attack. At least one person was killed and 2 others wounded after a Russian missile strike in the southern Ukrainian port city of Odessa. Blasts were also heard in central regions of Vinnytsia, Klementytsky and Zhytomyr. Kyiv's military administration says its air defense forces had shot down 29 out of 30 Russian cruise missiles. And Mykolaiv residents woke up to the sound of explosion as Russian missiles struck the southern Ukrainian city. Mykolaiv mayor said that car dealer office, shopping malls, several residential high-rise buildings and one industrial object were hit. A video released by Ukraine's emergency services shows firefighters working on site of damaged buildings. Russia denies deliberately targeting civilians in its full-scale invasion that has killed thousands of people, uprooted millions and destroyed towns. Mykolaiv, a shipbuilding center and port, had a population of about 470,000 people before the war. The city has suffered heavy Russian bombardment throughout the war. And a freight train carrying grain has derailed in Russian-annexed Crimea. That's according to the region's Russian-installed leader. As a result, rail traffic was suspended between Simferopol, capital of the Crimean Peninsula, and the city of Sevastopol. Crimean Railway said in a statement that the derailment was caused by interference by outsiders. However, authorities say no one was injured in the incident. The United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has welcomed the extension of a deal allowing the safe Black Sea export of Ukraine grain for another 60 days. It comes as Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan announced that the deal has been extended for 2 more months, a day before Russia could have quit the deal. The Ukrainian government also welcomed the extension, but says Russia must stop using food as a weapon and blackmail. On the other hand, Russia's government says the deal is first to help countries most in need, and it still has concerns over its own exports.
We have some positive and significant developments. The confirmation by the Russian Federation to continue its participation in the Black Sea Initiative for another 60 days. I welcome this decision. The continuation is good news for the world. Outstanding issues remain, but representatives of Russia, Ukraine, Turkey and the United Nations will keep discussing them. I hope we will reach a comprehensive agreement to improve, expand and extend the initiative, as I proposed in a recent letter to the presidents of the 3 countries. And I want to convey my appreciation to all those taking part in the negotiations in a spirit of constructive engagement. I once again express my gratitude to President Erdogan and the government of Turkey for their efforts working in permanent coordination with the United Nations. The importance of the Black Sea Initiative and the parallel memorandum of understanding between the UN and the Russian Federation is clear. These agreements matter for global food security. Ukrainian and Russian products feed the world. Under the Black Sea Initiative, more than 10 million tons of food have been exported. Vital food supplies are reaching some of the world's most vulnerable people and places, including 30,000 tons of wheat that just left Ukraine aboard the WFP chartered ship to feed hungry people in Sudan. They matter because we are still in the throes of a record-breaking cost of living crisis. Over the last year, markets have stabilized, volatility has been reduced, and we have seen global food prices fall by 20%. And they matter because they demonstrate that even in the darkest hours, there is always a beacon of hope and an opportunity to find solutions that benefit everyone. Looking ahead, we hope that exports of food and fertilizers, including ammonia, from the Russian Federation and Ukraine will be able to reach global supply chains safely and predictably, as foreseen in both the Black Sea Initiative and the Memorandum of Understanding on Russian food and fertilizer exports, the implementation of which the United Nations is fully committed to support.
British Defence Minister Ben Wallace said Britain can support Ukraine's military by enabling other countries which wish to supply fighter jets and other military equipment to Ukraine to do so, but countered any impression it was actively working to provide fighter planes. German Defence Minister Boris Pistorius also reiterated after the meeting with Wallace that the Federal Republic of Germany would not cede any fighter jets to Ukraine. Both Germany and Britain said they would not support Ukraine joining NATO at this moment, but could see it happening at a later date.
And I think that is the key, that Britain and Germany send the message to Russia that what they are doing is unacceptable and that they cannot win in this war, and that they should seek alternatives to it and indeed leave Ukraine. And I think that is very, very important. Well, first of all, Britain isn't going to donate any fighter jets to Ukraine at this time. Typhoon we've been consistent in saying we're not going to deliver Typhoon Tranche 1. Is not a plane that would be suitable, but also we make the clear point that this is not about gifting weapon systems. This is gifting a platform. So look, first of all, what could we contribute anyhow? We don't have F-16 and we're not going to put Typhoon. What we can obviously contribute is training and support, again within limits because we don't have F-16 pilots, but we can help with the pipeline. We can do what we've done throughout this, and Germany has been doing this with us in the International Donor Coordination Cell in Ramstein, which is we can enable other people who wish to. So if Boris is right, this is up to the White House to decide whether it wants to release that technology. But any nation comes to us and says we want to get tanks into Ukraine, we want to get, as we have been involved, MiG-29 parts or Su-24 parts, we will help with that process. We coordinate the political issue of whether Ukraine goes headlong straight into NATO is an issue that has to be decided by 31 nations. Now it was 30, it will be hopefully 32 soon. And I think it's really important that I don't speak on behalf of that alliance. I speak only on behalf of the United Kingdom. We've always said there should be a roadmap towards it. Ukraine were following that roadmap. But I think the here and now is how we can keep them in the momentum to defend their country and then build their resilience. And then let's have that discussion about membership at a future date.
Russia and Belarus have reaffirmed their commitment to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, NPT. Well, that's according to a report by Russian state news agency TASS. The Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty aims to prevent the spread of nuclear weapons and technology. In March, Russian president said he intended to station tactical nuclear weapons in Belarus, heightening fears in the West. But Minsk said the Russian nuclear plans would not contravene international non-proliferation agreements, as Belarus itself would not have control over the weapons. And the United States President Joe Biden told his Japanese counterpart, Fumio Kishida, that the US and Japan will hold Russia accountable for its invasion of Ukraine. The G7 summit holds from Friday to Sunday, in which member country leaders are expected to discuss a possible tightening of sanctions on Russia and security concerns about China, among other issues. Russia invaded Ukraine February last year, but the war has largely stalemated, although Ukraine is expected to start a counteroffensive soon.
So under Japan's leadership, we've already delivered progress on the G7 agenda this year, and I'm looking forward to our meetings in the days ahead. As you said back in January when you were at the White House, I think the quote is, we face one of the most complex environments in recent history, security environments. And I couldn't agree with you more. But I'm proud that the United States and Japan are facing it together. And, we stand up for the shared values, including supporting brave people of Ukraine as they defend their sovereign territory and holding Russia accountable for its brutal aggression.
VOA's Anna Chernikova joins me now from Kyiv. Hi, Anna. Welcome. Anna, yet another attack on Kyiv this week. Give us an update of the latest.
Good evening. Yes, it was another overnight attack across Ukraine, actually. But of course, the city of Kyiv was targeted the most. This is at least according to the information by the Air Force. And what we know for the moment that 30 missiles were targeting Ukraine in total. 29 were destroyed. One missile hit the area in the western part of the country. A lot of missiles were destroyed in the sky of Kyiv and Kyiv region. And I personally heard 3 explosions in my neighborhood, explosions of the air defense system action in the sky. And it was not that loud and that intense than comparing to what was on May 16 to 7 on night of the May 16 to 17, but still it was quite loud, and people in Kyiv and in Ukraine in general definitely had no sleep for half of the night, because the attack began at around 3 o'clock in the morning. In terms of casualties, we know that unfortunately there is 1 person killed and a couple of people injured in Odessa region. This is due to the debris falling down, and the Air Force of Ukraine reminded people once again that it's not only a high risk and high danger from the missile itself and from the heat itself, but also from the debris. And unfortunately, this is something that should be considered as well, especially by people and during the attack. And people should, hide as much as they can.
All this keeps happening, yet Russia denies targeting civilians, and hitting critical infrastructure. I mean, who are we to believe here, especially as to the targets when we hear about these airstrikes?
Well, unfortunately, what I can say from what we see and what we have as a confirmation of this actual targets, most of the missiles are destroyed in the air. And as we can see, but again, those that hit, they not always hit industrial areas or industrial zones. Very often they actually hit residential areas. But if we talk about debris is more likely to hit residential areas. So when Russia is saying that they're not targeting residents of Ukraine, any missile in the Ukrainian sky would be a risk, first of all, for the civilians, because even if air defense is successful, risks for civilians remain. And we see how many times there are a lot of damages, there are a lot of, unfortunately, victims due to this debris hits or drone hits. Again, after drone was shot down by air defense. So it's really difficult, to say that civilians are not targeted, even if the main target is military or industrial infrastructure, because any infrastructure would be considered as also something that affects civilians. And if we look back when Russia was targeting energy infrastructure, for instance, it was also a direct effect on the civilians it had. So unfortunately, civilians are always at risk and always a danger. It doesn't matter what is the main target.
Do we still have a number of people leaving Ukraine as a result of what's happening?
There is no any additional increase. A lot of people are actually coming back. But there is no particular, reports on additional amount of people leaving the country due to this attack. So some people remain. What I know from so I talked to some also people who, for instance, remain in the western part of the country and not coming back to the central parts parts of the country. And they explained is that with the fact that western part is more safe in terms of this, hostilities and shellings. I mean, not hostilities, but shellings. And a lot of people move inside the country as well from those areas which are close to hostilities and frontline. But there is no particular increase of people leaving the country itself.
Let's talk about Russia and Belarus. They've reaffirmed their commitment to the nuclear non-proliferation treaty. Do you see this as, sort of cheery news? Because the Russian president threatened to station tactical nuclear weapons in neighboring Belarus once upon a time.
I think that we should analyze this considering the further actions that Russia and Belarus will take. Because for the moment, what we see so whatever is said should be confirmed by actions. In this case, because we see a lot and we hear a lot of things that Russia is saying, and then actions are different. So we need to wait and see what the actions would be, what actual actions would be. Because for the moment, we know that Russia has actually passed some. At least this is what's been reported, that they've passed certain nuclear equipment to Belarus. And but another thing, and we should not forget about this, that Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, the biggest European nuclear plant, remains under Russian occupation and under control of Russian military. And I think that this is one of the biggest concerns so far. So, and also this is a part of the nuclear safety, a big part of the nuclear safety, because if anything happens at this plant, it would have been a catastrophic effect for sure. So, unfortunately, what I can say that, of course, it's positive that. Let's say that officially it's announced that Russia will continue, to follow this. But again, we have to look at the actions, and we have to look at what's happening in the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. So for the moment, it's really not. I think that it's not yet time to say that. That nuclear safety has increased on the territory of Ukraine, and in terms of Russian actions in Ukraine, because again, as I said, the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant remains at a huge risk.
Perhaps one other positive thing as well is that the safe Black Sea export of Ukraine grain can continue for another 60 days. But then we understand that Russia is saying it has concerns over its own exports, even though it's saying it's to help countries who need it the most.
Yeah, from one side, again, it's a positive news. It continues because we all understand that it was like the last day, no more days to wait. But again, we have, according to what the ambassador of Ukraine in Turkey confirmed, he said that there are still some points of negotiations which are still unclear and still not completely agreed on, and we will have to see how long this prolongation will last. So for the moment, we have 60 days, but again, in fact and in reality, we will see how will it go, and what all parties and how all parties will continue to act in the future. But of course, there is a big hope that Russia would not block anything anymore, and all the grain would be able to get out from Ukraine. But again, as I said, let's see what actions are going to be.
Indeed, we'll keep waiting. We want to thank you, Anna, and do continue to stay safe.
Thank you.
VOA's Anna Chernikova joining us there.